Max Verstappen is running away with the 2023 World Championship and has recently surpassed Ayrton Senna's total wins in the sport. He's matured a huge amount in the last 2 years and is now a seasoned champion, and winning races is second nature for the 25-year-old. It seems like Verstappen is getting better each weekend, which is making his teammates' life more difficult. So is Verstappen still getting better in Formula 1? Let's have a look. My name's Andy and this is Behind the Drive. A steep learning curve. In the last couple of years, Verstappen has proved what most people believed already. When given the right car, the Dutch driver has been able to achieve multiple race wins and now multiple world championships. Ever since Verstappen joined Red Bull during the 2016 season, he proved he was capable of winning races, as he achieved that feat at the first time of asking. But at the same time, errors were common for Verstappen at this point in his career. The race where mistakes were most prominent for Verstappen was the 2016 Monaco Grand Prix. This track is notoriously difficult, and the drivers that do the best are forced to thread the needle with tiny margins for error. Verstappen made errors in FP3, in qualifying, and then in the race as well, in what was a costly weekend for the team with a large repair bill. This was the Dutchman's second race for Red Bull, and the contrast between his victory in Spain and his turmoil in Monaco was an example of how he was far from the finished product. Meanwhile, Verstappen's teammate Daniel Ricciardo was competing for the race win in the Principality, showing what the car was capable of achieving. Year on year though, Verstappen continued to improve. He was getting more confident, and despite not having a car capable of winning a world championship, he still secured multiple race wins from 2017 to 2020. During this time, he became a Red Bull #1 driver, performing so well that Ricciardo actually opted to leave the Austrian team to go to a midfield runner in Renault. Verstappen subsequently saw off both Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon in 2019 and 2020 respectively, as the gulfing class between Verstappen and his teammates was huge, and the expectations of the team had grown to a level that these other Red Bull juniors simply couldn't match or even come close to. At this point in his career, it was clear Verstappen was ready for a world championship fight. He had come on leaps and bounds during his time with Red Bull, and despite still being a young driver, he had 6 seasons under his belt because he'd entered the sport at such a young age. With the cars that Red Bull had offered until 2021, Verstappen had been able to prove himself while still having a question mark over his head regarding whether he could continue these kinds of performances when competing with the best drivers in the world for a world championship. But it would be in 2021 that he would get that chance. The 2021 season was Verstappen's biggest test. He finally had a car that was able to compete with Mercedes, and it was another year where, in my opinion, he went on another steep learning curve. In addition, he had another new teammate, Sergio Perez, who was an experienced driver and joining the Red Bull team from outside of their driver academy. This was an interesting move in itself. The team had been forced to look at external drivers in efforts to find someone that would be able to be at least close to Verstappen on occasion. The season was a fascinating one, and it was perhaps the best competition in recent years. Verstappen was up against Hamilton for the title, as the pair were well ahead of their teammates and the other cars on the grid. Red Bull's achievements to improve their car in the way that they did with their minimal flaw regulation changes between 2020 and 2021 was also impressive. The team had listened to Verstappen's feedback over the preceding years, and with the support of their genius car designer Adrian Newey and their engine partner Honda, they managed to produce a car and power unit that was capable of competing for that title. Verstappen's championship fight did reveal some challenges in his driving style. For years he had been known for being a ruthless racer. He would hold his ground and had a mentality of the other driver needing to make the choice of whether they yield or crashed into each other. This style was something that we've seen from many champions in the past, but it was pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable in the sport. This style resulted in several incidents through the season. The incidents at Monza and in Sao Paulo between Verstappen and Hamilton were examples of this, and the incident at Silverstone arguably showed it the other way round as well. Following his first championship victory in 2021, I believe Verstappen continued to learn from this going into his title battle in 2022. He had a sensible approach to that championship, recognising that on occasions early on in the season, the Ferrari had the better car, and therefore he would accept the value of the points from second place when he could see Leclerc had the faster car. I think this is an example of how Verstappen has improved as a driver, and he's now a force to be reckoned with in F1 in 2023. But before we take a look at how Verstappen is reaching his peak this year, I want to ask you to subscribe to Behind the Drive. We're trying to bring you the best F1 content on YouTube, and to be the first to see it, you should hit that subscribe button. Is Verstappen in his prime in 2023? Verstappen's 2023 season has been his most dominant yet. After the close-fought title win in 2021 and the championship fight that lasted for about half a season in 2022, he's now utterly dominant in 2023. At the time of recording, he's taken 8 wins from 10 races and has a 99-point lead in the championship fight. He's so dominant that even if Verstappen was on his own in the Red Bull team, he alone would be leading the Constructors' Championship by more than 50 points. In addition, Verstappen is on a 5-win streak at the time of recording, and in the majority of those wins he's been dominant, winning each race comfortably. The dominance is impressive to see and is a culmination of his abilities reaching their peak, while also having the machinery produced by Red Bull to enable him to succeed. But it would be naive to say that Verstappen's winning ways is just down to the car. Whilst Adrian Newey's Red Bull design is excellent and clearly the dominant F1 car this year, Verstappen's ability is shining through when you compare him to his teammate. I've already mentioned the fact that Verstappen has comprehensively beaten his recent teammates in his Red Bull. Sure, the team are designing a car to suit Verstappen's driving style, but why wouldn't you? Given the Dutch driver's talent, it's a no-brainer to design the car with him in mind. This would give the team the best possible chance to win the Drivers' Championship in the case of a close fight. When looking at Red Bull, I believe that the team wants to win the Drivers' Championship more than the Constructors' title. Generally speaking, fans of the sport remember the Drivers' Champion far more than the Constructors' title winner. This is because, generally as humans, we like to associate success with the individual as opposed to a team. For Red Bull especially, given they aren't a car manufacturer, I think the success of the individual results in better outcomes for their primary goal within Formula 1, which is probably for marketing purposes. In Red Bull athletes, such as Verstappen, they have characters that can help market the brand well, and are personalities when it comes to particular marketing videos, such as the recent monster truck race he had against Yuki Tsunoda. With this in mind, it makes sense for Red Bull to fight for the Drivers' Championship more, and looking at 2021 when the Drivers' Championship went to Red Bull and Mercedes took the Constructors' title, you could see that they were thrilled with that result. So with a car that is tailored to him, Verstappen has still continued to deliver on the expectations in 2023. Despite some early season signs that he and Perez might fight for the championship, it's now incredibly clear that Verstappen is utterly dominant in the Red Bull and will win the World Championship. It would be easy to say that Verstappen has reached his prime in 2023, but at 25 years old, it could be argued that he isn't yet at his fastest, especially when you consider how long other drivers could sustain successful careers in the sport. At the same time, despite his young age, Verstappen is in his 9th season of Formula 1, and this will all be helping when it comes to his abilities in the sport and instances to lean on. For example, he'll be more comfortable challenging strategy calls given he has more reference points from his F1 career, and he will know how to better adapt to different tyre compounds or when best to change. These experiences on their own may feel small, but they all add up to make a significant difference, and this will all be helping Verstappen be the best he can be. In addition, this season we've seen Verstappen have so much more capacity in the car. He's looking around at screens and thinking about strategy calls, all while leading the race. On top of this, Verstappen has complete trust in Red Bull. Given he's been with the team since 2016, he's had good experiences and bad experiences during that time, and had seasons where they could win races and others where they struggled. This time with the team means Verstappen will have a good relationship with the team around him and trust that they have his best interests in mind. The best example of this was the trust he had in his team in Austria when he stopped with 2 laps to go in order to get the fastest lap. Given it was roughly a 20-second pit stop window and he had around a 23 or 24-second advantage over Leclerc, he needed a slick pit stop to ensure he didn't end up behind his rival. In the end, he risked the 7 points to second place in order to achieve just 1 more point for the fastest lap. And in the end, it paid off, and Red Bull's strengths in the pit stops enabled Verstappen to have the perfect weekend, winning every single point he could do. All of these factors enable Verstappen to focus on his driving, and right now, whenever he's leading the race, it feels impossible for him to drop back or make a mistake, and this is showing how confident he is in the car right now. It's a position that few F1 drivers ever experience, but it's felt like a matter of time before Verstappen became the strongest driver in the sport ever since his first season in 2015. With all these factors, it feels like Verstappen is only getting better as a driver, and in addition, his feedback will continue to help the team in terms of their car development, ensuring they maximise their heavily limited wind tunnel time. What does this mean for others? There are many talented drivers in F1 right now, and with Red Bull's dominance, they aren't getting the opportunity to achieve race wins, let alone compete for championships. For me, the current F1 environment is well suited to teams dominating. The sport likes to change regulations quite frequently, and this is caused by a grass is always greener mentality. In the short term, young, talented drivers like Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and George Russell don't have the machinery needed to compete at the front. This season, we've seen teams make big steps forward. This is expected when you are relatively early in a new regulation set, but both Aston Martin and McLaren have made huge strides in 2023 and they've progressed towards the front. But really, the chasing pack are all a long way behind Red Bull and in particular Max Verstappen. This suggests that these drivers will need to race in a Red Bull to stand any chance of winning a title anytime soon. Right now, there is speculation that Red Bull may have already switched most of their focus to 2024. If this is the case, then there will be concerns for all other teams, given they will likely continue their dominance. But, hypothetically, if Red Bull were to be caught by another team next year, in my opinion, there isn't a driver on the grid who'd be able to beat Verstappen over the course of a season. His dominance over his teammate, making him look below average, has been impressive, and I think that even with other teams on a level playing field, he will be able to get the maximum from his car and deliver week in, week out, just as he's doing in 2023. In my opinion, for another driver to win this championship, they will need to be in a faster car than the Red Bull. It seems unlikely, but at the same time, there seems to be a poisoned chalice in that second Red Bull seat, which has all been caused by Verstappen's dominance. It would be a bold move for one of these other young talented drivers to go there instead. I think Verstappen is the strongest driver on the grid right now. It would take a huge talent to beat him over the course of the season based on his consistency and his speed. He clearly has all the talent needed on track, but he's also giving great feedback to the Red Bull team off it, helping them design the car in the right direction. You just have to look at where Red Bull and Ferrari are right now compared to where they both were when starting the 2022 season on a seemingly level playing field to see how Verstappen's feedback will have helped make a difference. For me, he's a generational talent and is on track to break many records in Formula 1, including the consecutive win record, which would be a massive achievement for the Dutch driver. Right now, I don't see a team catching up with Red Bull, which is a real concern for the sport, but Verstappen is doing everything right in Formula 1 right now, and he's reaping the rewards.